Prior to that, he was chairman of JPK Industries, a vertically integrated company in the petroleum industry involved in oil and gas, drilling, operating, production, crude oil refining, and marketing. As co-founder, he helped grow the company from $50 to $15 million in 3 years. Prior to that, he was at Bear Stearns, where he advised clients throughout the U.S. and internationally. Mr. Peña successfully negotiated transactions with many multinationals, all Big Four accountancy firms, many major international financial institutions, and governments. In addition, he has successfully transacted business with the Vatican, the Canadian government, the Qatari government, the Israeli government, the Bank of England, and many other institutions. A year and a half ago, I came across Dan Peña's page on YouTube via London Grill. It took me a while to click on any of his content. I thought he might be a crock of shit like most of the quote-unquote successful people that are online. Until I finally opened up the video. It was then that I realized my inklings. My inner hurts thoughts were all true. That we really ought to unleash the inner Kraken on the world and take things to another level. I started setting goals that scared me, upgraded and tightened my inner circle, became more selfish with my time, and stopped giving taxes to people. Instantly, my life changed. High expectations, matched with the highest self-esteem, is necessary to maximize on our potential. At university, we all have the IQ to succeed in life, but often we don't have the necessary self-esteem and the EQ. That's why I'd like each and every one of us leading here today to be bold, to act, and to conquer. This hall and house is a special place. Commissioned by King Henry, the outline poem Rocking the Walls is one regarding the beauty and importance of free speech, and what a beautiful thing it is. Despite free speech's special place in our society, it's increasingly under attack. The old adage was, I will disagree with you till my death, but defend your right to say it, till that same death. Today on campuses, including this one, we need to get outside of our bubbles, and more often than not, hear and listen to people sincerely who we might disagree with on certain things. Dan is a controversial fellow with some controversial views. That, to me, is all the reason more why university students ought to hear from him. There are multiple ways to skin a cat, but Dan's way is becoming increasingly rare. So I thought it's time we got a chance to hear his story in person. We didn't pay Dan to come here, did it all on his own time, and only wants as many people sitting here as possible to succeed. Hear him out and enjoy. Or don't. Thank you.
The fine things that he said about me are all true, but that's all history. Nobody gives a shit, let alone me. So the thing that you should be concerned about is I've created over $50 billion with meatheads just like you. Now, I'm not here to insult anybody, but I will. I'm not here to hurt your feelings, but I will. I'm not here to discriminate, but I will. Because that's really life. And if you think any different, you're living in a fucking dream world. Now, normally I say, when I look at an audience, if I don't see color, which is the truth, I don't. But I have to be fucking blind not to see color in this audience. I mean, with the greatest respect, of course it's black ties, so I get that. And then one of the other sponsoring groups was, I believe, black lawyers, accountants, professionals. And I respect that. And Camp Gemini, I don't believe is black, but the hell, I may be wrong, maybe they are too. But when you get out in the real world, what was said to begin with about networking, I didn't do it that way. So the story that I'm going to tell you, which is all true, is how I did it. For most of you, not just in this audience, but most audiences that I speak in front of, it's too emotionally draining, and they can't do it that way. Now, I'm here quite by serendipity. About a year and a half ago, Oxford University called my office in Scotland, and I thought it was a joke. As my lovely wife was sitting in the front row will tell you. Somebody's yanking my chain. So when we got on the phone with them, I said, did my Rhodes Scholarship coming 50 years late, did it get lost in the post? Well, and to make a long story short, I finally spoke at Oxford a year ago May, and I got me thinking. But just prior to that, I'd been asked to speak at a charter school, a black charter school in Harlem. They contacted me. They negotiated. We negotiated 3 or 4 months. I can't do this. I can't do that. can I have dinner with him the night before? Yada, 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 yada. Then at 10 o'clock in the evening, the night before I was supposed to speak in Harlem, I happened to read my goddamn emails. And they canceled. My wife and I had flown from Scotland to New York City to speak, for me to speak, and they canceled. If I hadn't read my emails, I would have showed up. In hindsight, I should have showed up anyway. But they decided that I was too controversial. The school was 63% black, 29% Hispanic, and the rest, I believe, white trailer trash or something. But I was too controversial. Now, the talk that I give now is not the talk that I would have given then. I've only come up with wealth, risk, reward, not subsequent to those two events. Because what one of the young men alluded to is 100% accurate about you went to a good school, you got as good a grades as you yada, 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 and you go out and get a job, and then maybe at the end of 40 years they give you a watch for retirement, maybe. Well, that model is fucking bust. It has been busted for a long, long, long time. And I'm happy to hear it's busted in Canada, because I thought Canada was a gift-rich panacea. Now, to your credit, in the 1907 depression, the 1929 depression, the 1877 run on banks, and the 2008 and 9 financial crisis, not one single solitary bank got in trouble in Canada. Not one. That's the good news and the bad news. One of my superstars, who is Canadian, said, I've never been turned down by the World Bank of Canada in 25 years. I slapped it. You're not asking for enough fucking money. Why would you be proud of that? If that's how you're raised. Not many people in this audience, their parents would ever consider renegotiating their mortgage. You just pay it till you either drop dead or it's paid off, right? Well, those days are long gone. And everything that I'm going to say, you should be asking yourself, how does this apply to me, and how do I take advantage now? Now, on one of your websites, it says, the first step towards success is taken when you refuse to be captive of an environment in which you first find yourself. That's what this seminar, this talk, and that's what my life's all about. Because I was captured in an environment that you have no idea. Yes, I was arrested 5 times. Yes, I flunked out of university 3 times. Yes, I tried to kill my school teacher when I was in grammar school. Those are all true. I'm not proud of any of them. But I'm a product of my own social and economic milieu. And you'll see, no matter the toughest environment that anybody in this audience that was growing up in would be like Disneyland compared to me. But I didn't do it through networking. We're only going to spend about 10 or 15 minutes about saying how I did it, but it's still possible. It's still possible. I'm first-generation Mexican whose mom and grandma swam across the Rio Grande River in 1924, and I created over $50 billion for people like you. Was it worth it? This is in response to the illegal alien build the wall deal that is going on in the United States. I'm first generation, and I created 50 billion with people, well, maybe a little better than you now that I look at you, but I mean, more or less people like you. So is it worth it? Now see, my family doesn't want to talk about that I'm first generation. Nobody wants to hear it. Just as my lovely wife will attest to, my dear departed aunt who just passed away in 98, we went and did DNA tests. The first test came back, real DNA test, not that bullshit, harmony.com bullshit. I'm 5.5% black. Real black, not Ethiopian black like we all are. Next time we pay for the test, I'm 6.6% black. We tell my 98-year-old aunt this. And she tells me in Spanish, and my Spanish isn't good enough to repeat what she said. Daniel, at 98, I don't need to be black. People of color do have it harder. I'm a light-skinned, blue-eyed, weirdo Mexican. And Mexicans will tell you the reason why I'm so fucking successful is because I've got light skin. Maybe that's true, maybe it's not. I don't believe it is. But I wasn't raised like a minority. I didn't know how many zeros was in $1 million until I was 20. And I didn't know I was a minority until I was 20. It's not what happens to you in life, kids. And I call you all kids because I'm either old enough to be your father or grandfather. It's not what happens to you in life, and kids. It's how do we adapt to what happens to us in life. I hadn't thought that I was really discriminated against until I started preparing for this talk. Then I remembered when I was in the military. Peña, you were the sorriest fucking wetback Mexican in this man's army. Now that I think about it, that's probably discrimination, isn't it? I never thought of it that way because I didn't process it that way. It didn't resonate with me that way. Whether I was the sorriest Mexican wetback, while I was legal, in that man's army in 1966 and 67 and 68 and 69, I have no idea. I was a mediocre athlete, to say the least. Peanut, you're so fucking slow, you ought to wear the other team's uniform. You ought to wear the other team's uniform. Meaning that I was no benefit to our team, so why don't you play for the other goddamn team? Now some of you snowflakes in the audience will be hurt by that. You may have never recovered. Most of you haven't recovered to this day. This campus is very much like Oxford, the Ivy League schools in America. The kids that go here are privileged. But that's where the privilege stops. Because nobody gives a shit when you get out there. Trust me. I would rather have to hire a kid with no degree. And by the way, the reason I gotta keep going over here fucking with this thing is because we have no clicker. We only negotiated 5 months to be in this hall. But that's a whole other story. You can beat up on the little shit up here about that. And contrary to what everybody's been saying so far, life is not a journey. It's only a journey if you're a meathead. Life is a process. You find somebody is where you want to be today, now, and you do what he or she did. It's very simple. That's not a process. That's not a journey. That's a process. So inadvertently, even though I didn't know it at the time, I copied people. I modeled people. I mimicked people that were very successful. I didn't call it that then, but I did. So now, remember, wealth, risk, reward, not. You're modeling people that went to this fine university, for those of you that are students here, because 30, 40 years ago, it turned out all right for them. But did anybody check in the last 3 years, 5 years, when you started here? No. You accepted it on blind faith because you're stupid. And if love got the job done, there'd be no wars. So those of you that had a loving family, which isn't necessarily a benefit, look where it's gotten you. It got you into this home with an old man, senile old man screaming and yelling at you, calling you a dipshit. Yes, I am a rags to riches. That's where my house used to be. I'm standing in front of the lot, in front of the barrio. I was a barrio bad boy. And that's our home now currently in Scotland. And that's my lovely wife and I. But I'm a 1 in 10 billion. I'm 1 in 10 billion. So how many of you think you're going to be the 1 in 10 billion? And not just pretend to be the 1 in 10 million. Yeah, I know one guy raised his hand. Okay, fine. About 8 or 9 years ago, Donald Trump gave a speech in Australia. They paid him $250,000 to come and speak, and his used to be that he didn't, there was no time limit. He could come and talk 1 minute or 2 hours, depending on how he felt. So he gets in front of the audience of 3,000 people. He looks out at the audience, and I say, I wasn't there, but my mentees were there. Something to the effect, well, you're here to hear what the secret sauce is, aren't you? And they all went. And he looked out in the audience and said, you're all going to fail. And he walked off the stage. Because he's right. The odds are you're all going to fail. Because you're not willing to make the emotional sacrifices. We have two bank accounts in life. We have an emotional bank account and we have a financial bank account. You've been taught by your parents who have no training in bringing up high-performance people that it's the emotional bank account doesn't even count. It's the financial bank account that's important. You're worried about how much money you save, how much money this, how much down payment, what are your monthly payments, are your monthly payments less or more than you make, etc., etc. That's the wrong formula. I taught everybody to spend 125% of every fucking penny that you earn. 125%. Why? Because that leaves you no backup. No cushion. Your back's against the wall every day. And I did that for 40 years. What we're going to talk about for the next hour and a half is really the psychology of the high performer. And how, if you follow the psychology of the high performer, the wealth risk reward doesn't have to be not. It can be yes. But heretofore, the way that you've gone through life, I won't say it's impossible. But you think about how many people that you know that are high performers. Not because they went to law school, not because they're an accountant, not because they have a degree in chemistry, that are truly high performers. Unless they're Andrew Agassi or Steffi Graf's kid, you have no chance to be a truly gifted high performance person. Unless your parents were super high performance people, you've got no fucking chance. What do your parents know? What do they know today, this very day? Nothing. Otherwise you wouldn't be here. As my father used to say, because he was too rough on me, people would say, but Mr. Peña, you beat your son? Yes, I do. And then he'd say, well, how's your program working out with your big shit kids? And to a man and a woman, they'd have to say, well, my kids are losers. And look at Dan. And he used to embarrass the shit out of me. He'd say, this is Danny who lives in a castle. If we walked up and met you, this is Danny Peña who lives in a castle. I used to say, Dad, if you keep saying that, I'm not going to go to places anymore. That was his default. He couldn't help himself. One, he was very proud. And two, as he would say, I'm proud as hell of my son's success. But my son is successful not because of me, but in spite of me. Whatever chicken shit success that you got here for is not because of your parents, it's in spite of your parents. The parents don't like to admit that, do they? I see a lot of parents shaking their head, yes, right now. But if you're put on the spot at a dinner table with your kids sitting there, you wouldn't do that. Because most parents, not all, but most parents live vicariously through you. Now just think about it, guys and gals. If they've got to live vicariously through you, what the fuck? They must be double losers. Why would any parent want to be like you? It doesn't matter if you're black, yellow, brown, purple. But success needs clues. Success needs clues. And the most important reason that you should be here is I've created over $50 billion since 1993 with kids just like you. The other most important is starting with zero. Nothing. Fuck all. Not even pennies. Which puts, I'm sure, almost everybody in this room in that same category. You got fuck all. Nothing. We have 48 invitations to speak at universities in 14 countries since we opened this up about a year ago. And one of my sisters doesn't understand that Vancouver is not next to Toronto. Well, you can speak here, and then you can just zip over to Vancouver, then you can zip back. I mean, just like they don't know the difference between Dallas and Dulles. Dulles is in Washington, D.C., Dallas is in Texas. But success does leave clues. Now this is a clue. Where's Canada on the global competitiveness report? Yes, it is there, but where? And that's up. No, that's down. They're 15th in the world. Switzerland, Singapore, and the United States. I left the United States because when I was looking to make my way in the world, we weren't number 3 in the United States. Canada had never been number 3. Notwithstanding, they never had a bank go under. That's part of the reason they haven't taken enough risk. I.e., you haven't taken enough risk. I.e., you're in your comfort zone. You're in your comfort zone. Success does leave clues. This is my demographics for kids that follow me. You can see most of them are between 18 and 34. 15 years ago, it was between 34 and 55. So success leaves clues because now I've redeveloped the QLA system to that age group. We've been successful from 17 to 77. Why are the kids today, kids, able to use QLA and what Dan Peña teaches so much more readily than 10 or 15, 20 years ago? Because of the internet. Because information is almost instantaneous. Information is almost instantaneous. And kids figure out that they're fucked up much earlier now. Before it took you to be 30, 35, 40. Now they know it at 15, 16, 20. They know that parents are full of shit. Early on. My generation always thought our parents were full of shit. But the kids today know their parents are full of shit. There's no question. There's no question. And we had grandparents, parents, and kids all in the same room together, and the grandparents and the parents will say the same thing, and they will admit it. Now, I've been beating my chest for the last few years saying that they're giving money away free, even in Canada. This is the lowest in 5,000 years of recorded history interest rates. I'm going to say it again, real slow. This is the lowest in 5,000 years of recorded history interest rates. I'm going to say it again. This is the fucking lowest in 5,000 fucking years of recorded history. They're giving fucking money away. And what are you going to tell your kids and grandkids in 10 or 20 years from now when the greatest transformation of fucking wealth happened? You have your thumb up your ass and you didn't do a goddamn thing. And what even makes it worse, if we do have inflation in 5 or 10 or 15 years, you're going to pay back the debt with cheaper money. You're going to pay back the debt with cheaper money. You're going to... Oh, you look stupid. God damn. I flew all the way here to talk to fucking Canadian meatheads. It's never going to get this good again. 5,000, you understand that? Christ almighty. What are you going to tell your kids? Oh, I just had my thumb up my ass. I listened to that old bastard and I didn't believe him. You should be doing this. You should be at the fucking club just sucking that shit down like fucking cocaine. I've never done drugs, but goddamn. But you're not. I ask you why. Because this. Some of you have been taught money's dirty. Some of you have been told that money's not important. You got other values more important. And those are all horse shit. Only poor people say that, lady. Only poor people. What the fuck happened to you? More importantly, what the fuck happened to your parents? And their parents. Their parents would have been the greatest generation. Like my dad came from. that kept the Japanese and Hitler and all that stuff. What the hell happened to those people? Now, in preparation for this little talk, I wanted to do some research about famous black Canadians because black ties, even though they're not all black. I had trouble finding them. In the spirit of truth and brotherly love, check. You don't have many. You don't have many successful people, period, on the world level. I mean, they're few and far between. The first method of estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. Another way of saying that, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. If you were to be measured by the people you hang with, you chill with, what would people think of you? You're just a skinny little shitbag with a gray tie. If you're judged by the people that you're associated with, how are you going to be judged? High performance people don't go to the World Cup. High performance people don't go to all those sporting events, Super Bowl. They don't even watch them on TV. They don't stream them. That's the right terminology. So they're too busy working. Because if you don't like what you do and you consider it work, you're in the wrong profession. If you're worried about your statutory leave, etc., you're doing the wrong thing. I've been telling people I'm working 50, 60 hours a week the last 10, 15 years, and I'm retired. And I haven't had to work in over 30 years. My wife brought it to my attention. She's a chartered accountant in the UK. He already worked 70, 80 hours a week still. And so we did the sums, and I guess I do. But I don't consider it work. I don't consider it work. The first 7 years of life is when your self-esteem is built. Who did you spend the first 7 years of life with? Mommy. Maybe daddy, if he was around. Older brother, a grandparent, right? And look at you. Fucked up beyond all recognition. So what does that say about those dipshits? And nobody else can see, I got nothing to tell you kids. I don't give a fuck. I would have done a poor job if you like me. I would have fucked up if you like me. I have nothing to tell you. I don't give a fuck if you drop dead today, right here. I got no upsell, no side sell, nothing. And you idiots, when the guys say, Valentine's Day sale, 50% off everything. What the fuck does that mean it was worth the day before Valentine's Day, you fucking idiots? And you'll gobble it like that steak at the money talk. You'll gobble that shit because it's 50% off. 50% of zero is still fucking zero. And if you think, and those, I know a lot of those guys, they're great guys. They gotta make a living. God love them. I'm not here to have you take money out of their mouth and not feed their kids. But if you think you're getting any fucking value, you're stupid. You're fucking stupid. Looking around, yeah, you are stupid. I got nothing to sell. All my stuff is free on my website. 99.9% of everybody that has benefited from QLA I've never met. And why did I give it away free? Or do I give it away free? To take the last excuse of you weenies why you can be successful. Who else has created 50 billion? Nobody. Who has created 1 billion? Nobody. Who's created anything? Nobody. That's an exaggeration. You're hanging with monkeys and your life becomes a circus. I'm surprised you didn't come in here like circus clowns. I'm surprised you didn't come in here like circus clowns. I'm here, and people will ask my wife during the networking or whatever they call it after these things over. Is this how Dan is? This is how I am when I wake up. This is how I am when I go to sleep. At my 70th birthday a couple of years ago, they kept asking our children and my kid brother, is this really how Dan is? And this is how I am. When in 1991, I got the award for where I went to university as the most distinguished alumni in the history of the school. They're interviewing Dr. Shirley Teeter, who was the dean of the School of Business, and they're asking, Dr. Teeter, you've known Mr. Peña 25 years or more. Can you tell us a little bit about him and how's he changed? And she looks right into the camera. Now, this is a Stanford PhD, head of the School of Business, looking right into the CBS camera, and she says, I quote, the only thing that's changed with Danny is his accomplishments have caught up with his big fucking mouth. Now, you'd be hurt. I wear like a badge of fucking honor. Not that I was the most distinguished alumni in the history of the school, but the little skinny, witty, God rest his soul, who's dead now, had the balls to say that. It took her 25 years to gather the balls to say that. Most of you in this audience wouldn't say shit that was in their mouth. Because it's not PC. And you care what other people think. And how's that got you so far? How's that system got you? You're poor. Some of you are dirt poor. Some of you are going to stay dirt poor. Now, being all you can be has its consequences. And these are some of mine. Because being all you can be isn't just psychologically, it's physically, in my judgment. And these are some of the things I've had replaced over the years because I push myself to the limits. Still do. At my age. I know people that have come, that I've met in the last 20-some years of coaching, that have never been in a fist fight. And their goal in life is they want to be in a barroom brawl before they die. Barroom, you know, like in the movies when they're breaking chairs over here. And I say, I've been in a barroom brawl. And those bar stools don't crumble like balsa wood like when they get somebody. I've had people that have never said shit that was in their mouth. I'm supposedly the alpha male father that nobody ever had. I still press myself. I just had 2 new knees put in. Why? Because I want to climb. What do I want to climb? Kilimanjaro, hard. And I had to replace my. Oh, yeah, and Everest, thank you. But I couldn't do it because I had no cartilage in my knees left. And if I had known, there's 4 or 5 things I'd never do again. One of which bypass somewhere. Buy a plane, buy a boat, have both of my knees done close at the same time. Because they don't, and I'm a tough guy. And if it was hard for me, I can't imagine what a snowflake was when. I mean, I just can't imagine. I just can't imagine. I can't imagine. Cost is high, not money. The cost to be a high-performance person. Remember, this is all, why doesn't wealth risk reward work anymore? 1, that the financial system is all busted. 2, your parents didn't teach you how to be a high-performance person. Most of your parents with no high performance that bit them in the ass. 3, the educational system, like this fine institution. I used to teach in universities, but I thought students were worthless, and this was 20 years ago. First thing I'd ask the School of Business here, how many classes do you have in selling a business? How many classes do you have in buying a business? How many classes do you have in leadership? Normally, the 3 answers to those questions are none, none, none. Well, if you can't buy a goddamn business, and you don't know how to sell a fucking business, and you don't know how to lead any employees, what are you learning? Just recently, in the last 3 or 4 years, Wharton and some of the big B schools are giving classes in those subjects that I just alluded to. Some say because I shamed them. But certainly for 20 years they didn't. To be a high-performance person, so you can make the system work for you, you have to go through a thing called cognitive dissonance. Right? You're getting information. You look like deers in the headlights right now, most of you. You've never heard before. The absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Just because you've never seen it done this way, just because you've never met anybody like this, doesn't mean it doesn't take place. I can give you examples of Steve when he was alive, Bill, Elon, Steve Ballmer, Ford, Carnegie, Rockefeller, Vanderbilt, Watson of IBM, that make me look like a pussy. And if they make me look like a pussy, kids, what the fuck are you? Because I could eat this whole fucking room at one time for breakfast. "85% of your financial success includes your personality and ability to communicate, negotiate, and lead. Shockingly, only 15% is what you learn in school." They don't teach you that, do they? Did your parents tell you that? Did your grandparents tell you that? Now the world is fucked up. We know that. Riots everywhere. Okay? Even in Toronto. And if they got riots in Toronto, God, I mean, Lord, we're in trouble. If the gifted fantasy of the planet is having riots, we're in big trouble, as my Yorkshire wife would say. But even in Toronto, even in Canada, I drove by the college yesterday. I yelled boo. 35 people went to the hospital. 734 needed crisis counseling. 429 needed a safe area or room. Classes were canceled for a week. That's why we had so many people here, because I went through and yelled at some people yesterday afternoon. Now, that's embarrassing. But that's not far from the truth. We all know it. They used to put me in the room with a dunce cap in a closet all day. I had to stay there until my parents came to pick me up. Can you imagine if that happened today? It'd be viral, right? They said I was an idiot. And now you can't even call anybody fat ass. Now they're weight disadvantaged. Hey, Baldy! No, he's hair disadvantaged. You know? Am I the only one that sees how fucked up that is? Russia loves me, by the way. You can imagine why Russia loves me. The Ruskies love me. Eastern Bloc countries all love me. I'm fully booked. 5 talks in Poland, Slovenia, Estonia. They think that I'm Khrushchev II. Kids, the Romans had their day, the Greeks had their day, and we're having our day. We're beyond the cusp, in my judgment. We're in the 9th fucking inning. Oh, you got baseball here as well. We're in the 9th fucking inning. In my judgment, there's no turning back in my lifetime. I just hope for some of you youngsters, we can turn it around. If your adult child needs a safe space to avoid offensive words, you failed as a parent. When I used to come home and I'd be beaten at school, not in a fist fight, but by the teachers. Oh, I was the last person in California high school to receive corporal punishment. Corporal meaning you could get beat by a teacher. In May 1963, I was the last human being that got a beating from the vice principal And at my 50th reunion a few years ago, my wife and I, she could attest to this, they asked me if I would reenact that beating. And I said, no, nobody's going to beat me now. I'm 68 years old. And he said, no, we want you to reenact it. So I reenacted it. This time I pretended to be the boys' vice principal. And boys' vice principals in those days were the enforcers. And the enforcers that beat me was a guy named Hank Lee. So he's dead now. But, and I got to hit a retired cop, not for real. And by the way, some of you are wondering why I bought this. When I first took the engagement to speak here, this is no bullshit. It's hard for me to believe within this audience that I should be concerned about security. Physical security. That must have been a big fucking joke. That I could kill a third of this group, single-handed. So I bought this, just in case they were right. And it's always the first two or three that are afraid, because nobody wants to be the first to get his head cut off. And then, the last time I used that cricket bat was in India, Bangalore, when a mob of 15 Indians tried to intimidate me. And I broke one of the motorcycles in pieces. And then they came up to me and said, you're intimidating us. I said, well, I hope so. I hope the fuck I do. Or I did. You failed as a parent. Now, how was I raised so differently? Well, again, wealth versus war not. The reason why that I was able to take advantage of the financial system the way it existed 34 years ago is by accident. My mother was reading Reader's Digest. There's a thing called Reader's Digest where they do the synopsis of books. And in 1946, my mother had the good fortune to read the synopsis of this book. And it's called The New Revised and Enlarged Edition of Dr. Benjamin Spock, A Common Sense Book for Babel and Child Rearing. It was written in 1946 for all the baby boomers coming back from World War II. And my mother read this. And it was like a Bible. She raised me with it. She raised me with it. For those of you that have kids less than 7 years old, it's still a great book. It's the second most purchased book in history behind the Bible. 55 million copies. The second thing my parents did, thinking ahead, my mother gave me tennis lessons in the barrio. Nobody played tennis. My mother, free at the park. My mother gave me golf lessons, free at the park. My mother gave me ballroom dancing lessons, free. No, those were $10 a month at Arthur Murray. And she did several things like that to differentiate me from the body. And I still was a fuck up. You don't try to tell your teachers while you're in grade school if you're a good kid. And then after I got expelled 3 times, and the third time they said I had to leave the school district, not just school. And so my mother nagged my father, and we bought a house in the San Fernando Valley we could not afford. My dad took 2 new jobs. He worked 3 jobs to be able to afford that house where white people were. And I still got in trouble. I was born to be bad, that's what they used to say. My dad had one goal for me in life. To keep me alive until I reached the age of reason. That was it. Not graduate from school, not get good grades, not stay out of jail. Keep me alive until I reached the age of reason. It was touch and go. It was touch and go. And for those of you, it's free on my website. Look at the section of Dan Does the Extreme. Some of the crazy shit things I did growing up. Yeah, unbelievable. It makes me have chill bumps even today. If love got the job done, most parents would have produced high performers. I rest my fucking case. Shit. Unbelievable. Now, I have another part of the speech which I'm not going to do here. Most of you are by accident. Not just because there's 6, 7 years in between. I can prove to you, most of you are by accident. If you're not by accident, just look at you. Why in the fuck would they want to have you? And if they can have you back, 95% of your parents would want you back. Haven't you made them proud? Oh, gee whiz. As I said, the Greeks had their day, the Romans had their day, and just imagine if you're our day. Christ Almighty. Praise Allah. Praise Allah. Now, this kind of says it all for me, and this is the end of this part of the talk. A few weeks ago, I don't even know who this broad is. I don't know who it is. But she said, my friend came back from the bathroom, and he was like, did you see this guy? He was all wet and crying. Apparently, this guy at a bar was hassling her. So she threw a drink in his face. He went to the toilet, pissed himself, and came back crying. Are you fucking kidding me? Pissed himself and came back crying. And she's making fun of one of the late night shows. I thought it was a joke. I thought they were going to bring him more on up. That's the stage. One of my mentees is a leading guy, how to go get laid. His name's Jason Kaplan. I didn't even know that he had those kind of things. But anyway, people pay him between $40,000 and $3,000 a month to teach them how to get laid. $40,000 and $3,000 a month. As Joe Rogan in his Infinite Wisdom said on his show, Christ, man, that's a mortgage payment. I didn't know that those things existed. I didn't know that economic model existed. And then he asked me, Dan, we could go on tour, you and I. This is the kid Jason asked me, you and I could go on tour, we could probably get $25,000 a month if he told him how to do it. Because with the greatest respect for my wife sitting here, when I was young and single, I got more ass in the toilet seat at a bus station. And I'm proud of it. Now you're a slut, right? Now you're a slut. Even guys can be sluts now, right? Can guys be sluts? Oh, fuck. I'm glad I didn't live back then. Or back now, I mean. That's unbelievable. Anyway, we'll skip to the next section. Now, guys, gals, this is you, meathead here, Canadian meathead. And this is your goals over here at the end. You got your friends to get by. You got your relatives. You got your own guilt because you're ugly, skinny, fat, whatever. You got society in general. And you just got fear. And you wonder why you don't accomplish your goals. This slide says it all. Again, all this is free on my website. For those of you that have done courses, read books, podcasts, it's on the left-hand side. But you've never connected the dots. You've never found anybody that taught you how to connect the dots. And that's why, see, you've been told reading a book, going to a seminar, listening to a podcast is taking action. It's not. It's procrastination, so you don't have to take action. It's procrastination, so you don't pull the trigger. There's only one form of taking action, that's pulling the trigger, and that's actually doing it. The Dalai Lama, at his 80th birthday, I was not invited. Some of my mentees were invited. At the end of his speech, he says, you can pray, you can meditate, you can do this, you can do that, but taking action, action, action is the only thing that you can get final results. All the rest is mental masturbation. Now, so far, you put up with me, but these eyes have seen shit you haven't seen. Not just because I'm a lot older than anybody else in the room. But these eyes, it's like in the famous line in Blade Runner, when, what's his name, is talking to Harrison Ford. These eyes have seen. Well, these eyes have seen a lot of stuff, kids. A lot of stuff. Not the least of which, these are the kids that come to me. This is real from a few weeks ago. He's ashamed of being a snowflake. So he lets other people lash him. That's 100 fucking lashes. He's ashamed of who he is. He's ashamed of being a cunt. When I say cunt, I mean coward. No disrespect to the female parts. This doesn't come to me. You only come to me for one or two reasons. Desperation or inspiration. He's ashamed. And as my wife would attest, he's a nice young man. He's a nice little guy. I told him, better than to put a bullet in your head. Because that's his next step. To swallow a revolver. Now, I've seen Amsterdam, Rotterdam, Frankfurt bombed after the Second World War. That's how old I am. I've seen that as a little boy. That resonates. When I was there in the early 50s. I feel sorry for the kids in Puerto Rico and all these things. But I mean, and they say it's like an atomic bomb. Well, I wasn't in Hiroshima. But I certainly have seen this. This is a bubble wrap community. It's a bubble wrap country that keeps you in your comfort zone. That's the good news. But the bad news is it keeps you in your comfort zone. And the only way you grow is to get out of your comfort zone. For those of you that had bicycles when you were growing up, you had little trainer wheels on your bicycles, right? Little trainer wheels. So at some point, your parents took the trainer wheels off, right? And what happened? You fell over on your melon head, right? And so your mommy normally comes over, oh, baby, you'll be all right, They put the training wheels right back on. I let them bleed. My kids, I never thought of it this way. Our kids are millennials. I never thought of them being millennials because they don't act like millennials. They don't act like snowflakes. They're 31 to 35. An age. Our daughter just turned 31. Went to prestigious schools like this. Not schools like I went to, but I mean prestigious schools. And they said, they're both getting ready to leave there and go out on their own. They said, well, we're working for Fortune 500. And they got jobs. And I didn't have one phone call to get them a job. Not one. And I could have got them a job with one call. Our daughter suffered 9 months. Never thinking she'd get hired. But she's going to all these prestigious schools and can't get a goddamn job, Daddy. It's tough out there, kid. Our son struggled 13 months. But it's their job. It's their career. It's not Daddy's and Mommy's career. But these guys have seen. Now, you guys have also seen, I was going to marry a Canadian once from Cold Lake. For those of you that know where Cold Lake is, it's the middle of nowhere. 60 below zero. No wind chill. Nancy, you're not in the audience, are you? Okay. I was going to marry a Canadian. Everything was, I learned how to curl. I was a beast on the broom. I learned to drink wine ginger ale. And everybody was slappy happy. This was 40 plus years ago. And now they're even more slappy happy than they were then. Cold Lake. And I thought we were going to get married and I was going to go over here for school, McGill. Didn't understand that that was supposedly a good school. And they wouldn't even talk to me. Found out very quickly that they wouldn't talk to me. But I was going to get married to a French Canadian, slappy happy, have 2.5 kids, and go to McGill, yada, yada, yada. Didn't work out that way. I would have torn McGill up, though. They would call McGill Peña. It would be the new name of the school. I also knew him in another lifetime. Not the current one, but the old one. You should listen to me, not just because I've met 5 presidents, not just because I've met 4 or 5 prime ministers, not just because I've met 5 secretaries of state, You can't go through that process. That is a process. But I had a model. I wanted to meet this president. I wanted to meet that president. I knew how I wanted to mentor me. Not by accident, slappy happy. I have 3 regrets in life. One, I'm a combat-trained military army officer who never saw combat during the Vietnam War. 2, I yelled at my mother the day before she died, "God damn it, Mom, you're not fucking sick, you're not fucking sick, you're not gonna die." The next day she's dead. And 3, I didn't set my goals high enough. Not that I missed my son's Little League game. Not that I missed my daughter's Sweet 16. None of that. That's in the books. That's in the fairy tale stories. That's Disneyland. That's not real life. These guys have seen Saturday Night support a lot of people. I thought the audience was going to look like this. I'm disappointed, actually. You know. But, I mean, that's a school that we support in Rwanda. The little kids are cute. I mean, unbelievably cute. And that girl, Faith, her name, is the daughter of a wealthy family who's devoted her whole life to these kids. It would be a real test to see if you were as rich as she comes from, if you devote your life to taking care of little shits like that. See, talk's cheap. Talk's cheap. Now, when kids are 6 months old, they're pretty happy, right? Unless they have to have a diaper change. Right? They giggle, giggle, wiggle, wiggle, bullshit, bullshit. They're all pretty happy. And even at 3 years old, they're still pretty happy. Even at 7 years old, they're pretty happy. Then what happens? You happen. As a mother. You a mother? Okay. Well, you look like a mother. You look old enough to be a mother. You're an old Spencer then, an old Spencer Hag then. Okay. A good looking Spencer Hag, but then, you know, better to be good looking than not good looking. Now see, nobody talks this way. You can't. You can line up for sexual harassment suits outside. I don't give a fuck. Get your lord ass outside. Or get your butt, disadvantaged butt. I don't know how to say it the right way anyway. What happened? Your parents happened. I bet you were a little kid when you were 3, 4, 5 years old. And then your parents. There's not a parent in this goddamn room that can deny that. You can't hardly find an unhappy 3-year-old. Unless you got to change your diaper. I've only changed 1 diaper in my whole life. But that's a whole other story. I can give a whole seminar on how to avoid that, guys. But that's a whole other seminar. Okay? And I was shamed into changing that diaper. Because he had poop running down the inside of it. That's a whole... Anyway, good. Okay. But what happens? Our parents happen. Our parents happen. And then, because the kids aren't programmed for success. They're not programmed. I was the closest thing that came to being programmed. And my mother read a book. By the grace of Allah. And then she followed the book, The Process. Tennis. Golf. Ballroom dancing. Bar of bad boys don't do that shit. And I'm sure in the black communities, or in the Asian community, I can't speak to that, but I can tell you in the barrio, nobody did that kind of stuff. And fortunately, I was the biggest kid on the school ground. I got in a lot of fights. Oh, you gonna go dance? You gonna wear your little, whatever the skirts were for girls they wore. But my mother kept at it. Because she knew if I had those skill sets, I'd be differentiated. She didn't know they were going to call me the wetback Mexican in the army when I got there. Now, for those of you that are of color in this room, you've been discriminated against, either directly or indirectly, at least once in your lives. But it's how you react to being discriminated against. I have Chinese partners, I have Japanese partners, see, I don't consider Indians Asians, but I've got Asian partners that are Indian. They're all the same. How you react to what people call you. Muhammad Ali, Michael Jordan, they all reacted differently to discrimination. Mike Tyson, back in his prime, he reacted differently. Now you call somebody something, they fall to shit, like the guy that went in the bathroom and pissed himself. Now, metaphorically, that guy needs to swallow a revolver. Metaphorically speaking. And I related back, about 45 years ago, I was at a wedding and I called somebody a not nice name. And she came and poured a whole picture, punch on my tuxedo, all down my head. And I could say, I was seriously hurt, but that'd be a lie. I thought it was funny, and then I was going to get up and smack her. But even then, it wasn't popular to smack women. It wasn't popular. And especially at a wedding. But I thought about it for about 100th of a second. And but now, if you even say something like that, you get in trouble. And I'm told it's even worse in Canada. So this may be my only talk in Canada, although I've got 5 or 6 other universities that want me to speak. But when they see this online, they may revoke my invitation. I'm still waiting for Columbia University in New York City to get back to me. Princeton just postponed me till next year, which means never. So that's not likely. I don't think McGill's going to ask me. I'm going to use you as a reference, though. But I'm sure that you can understand. Again, wealth, risk, reward, not. If you weren't programmed, and money's not the only thing in life, I understand that. But if you're going to save the world and you're going to save the rainforest, etc., don't make a lot of money, then go save it. Then go save it. Because right now you have no chance of saving anything. It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. Frederick Douglass, arguably the smartest black guy in the United States back in that era. This is in the era of Abraham Lincoln. It's true. It's truer today than it was then. It's truer today than it was then. Some people will never like me, and I will never give a fuck. The world will not value me until I value myself. Self-esteem is at the bare root of all high performance. Self-esteem. And the lack thereof is obviously the opposite. To the best of my knowledge, there aren't any degrees in self-esteem. I'd like to teach that program if there ever are. Confidence is not, they will like me. Confidence is I will be fine even if they don't. Now, these are some of my mentees, a few. That's Taha, a Muslim brother. Now, this is one of my black brothers. Goins. James. Found him. He was not a bank robber. I'm exaggerating now, but he was a bum. But he's going to Princeton next year. From a black bum in Mississippi to Princeton. Now, that's a fucking quantum leap. That's a fucking quantum leap. He just turned 20. He's a deal-doing motherfucker. Teenager. And what do? And when you have high aspirations, what happens? Now look. Most of you live in apartments, don't you? 2 months behind on your rent. Go get a gun, metaphorically speaking. Go get a gun. I mean, you got no chick, just get a gun. I mean, do Allah, Buddha, and God a favor. Blow your fucking brains out. Now, why does he have that house? Because he looked at houses like this. Oprah, me, will, because he believed. And he's a bloody teenager. When he closed his first deal in January this year, we're not happening to be in Washington, D.C., you need 2 forms of ID now to close the deal because of money laundering, etc. He had to go home and get his passport, and he had to use his learner's permit because he didn't have a driver's license to close the deal. A learner's permit. He now has a driver's license. We're having dinner with his parents in a few weeks because his parents did something right. The parents give me the credit. I did something else. He was a star in the making before I ever got a hold of him. He did everything exactly like on the website. If it said stand on one leg, cross the T, he stood on one leg. If it said stand on the other leg and dot the I, 100%. Now, the Asians didn't know and say, oh, he's successful because he doesn't look Korean. Because you got to have a reason why a 17, 18-year-old can be a multi-millionaire, right? And you just being a dipshit that you are. Just like my excuse, he's a weirdo, blue-eyed Mexican. Because they believe. Success is like being pregnant. Everyone says congratulations, but nobody knows how many times you were fucked. Now, at least you guys, at Oxford, they didn't laugh. At Oxford, they didn't laugh. I'm sure they understood it intellectually, but yeah, at least the Canadians laugh. The Canadians laugh. Okay. Now, we're born limitless. We have limiting beliefs. Our parents did that for us. We've got to get a hold of our emotional baggage. We learned, we have to unlearn. We have to learn that what we learn can be unlearned. We have to stay aware of limiting beliefs of others and get in touch with your emotions and the system so you can be part of the new wealth risk reward. Is I base it on the mentor system. Finding somebody. Now, I'm not going to embarrass anybody. How many listen to podcasts this week? I'm not going to embarrass you asking about books and all that other stuff. But are those people where you want to be? If they are, you've got low goals. Because there's nobody out there doing seminars, say maybe one, that is really successful. Now, you think they're successful based on what you've done. We had a guy come to the seminar a couple weeks ago. He makes $1 million a year. I mean, which is all right. I mean, he's didn't go to school, been in jail, yada yada. And but he says, I don't want my kids to grow up to be me. And he's making $1 million a year in his pocket. I don't want my kids to grow up to be me. Now that I've seen what's possible. And remember, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Just because you haven't seen, and I'm probably the only guy, I reached out, not that I agree with all, I reached out to Jordan Peterson, professor here. Because somebody says you sound like him, but when I researched, I didn't really, he and I agree only on one thing about political correctness. I say political correctness is a manifestation of lack of self-esteem. He says it's something else. But anyway, I tried to get hold of him a couple times, he never replied, so anyway. I guess he didn't want to talk to me. But for the most part, people don't come and talk about stuff like this. It's not because it's not true. It's because they want to sell you something. They want you to come to the next seminar. They want you to buy the next book. They want you whatever. And I don't have that burden because I don't care. I'm truly the only person you probably ever met that doesn't give a shit if you like me. And if you like me, I did something wrong. I did something bloody wrong. I screwed up big time, if you like it. I'm here to shake you into reality. Remember, wealth, risk, reward doesn't have to be not. Most of you have heard of the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. It shouldn't be think and grow rich. It should be not think and grow rich. Pull the trigger. Now, I'm going to give you an example that will be sobering for some of you. When Napoleon Hill was given the task by Andrew Carnegie back in the day to write this book, it was going to be the Law of Success, which morphed into Think and Grow Rich. It was success. Success is measurable. You either have a home run, you don't have a home run. You either get an A or you don't get an A. You either make it, right? And then when Andrew Carnegie said that I'm going to introduce you to the 500 richest, wealthiest people that I know, it'll take 20 years, blah, blah, blah. Okay. 1950s, the Napoleon Hills broke. Andrew Carnegie died. Think and Grow Rich had become a famous book. And a guy named W. Clement Stone, an old insurance peddler from Chicago, who founded a company called Combined Insurance, came to him and said, I need some way to motivate my salesman. And his idea was positive mental attitude. A great idea. But we can't call it this, because this is too easily measured. We got to call it something else. And they thought for a moment, they said, let's call it personal development. Can't measure that shit. Because everybody's personal development is their own, right? Whether you're black, yellow, blue, it's all different. And that's how personal development industry was born. To sell, to use as a sales tool for thousands of insurance salesmen in the late 50s. And that's why you don't read too much about success anymore. Because success can be measured. And all the things that you've done, other than spend money, that can be measured. How would you measure them? Would you measure them as successful? If you've been going to a sales course and you made sales, then you can measure it against the sales from that sales course, right? But when you go to a personal development course, how do you measure it? You feel good? You feeling good doesn't mean a goddamn thing. If you feeling good meant anything, you wouldn't be here. If love got the job done, you wouldn't already be here. Ted Nicholas, who attended my first seminar many years ago, told me, and I thought he was lying to me. Dan, he says, personal development is $1 billion business. $1 going around to 1 billion people. I didn't believe him. I thought he was trying to keep me out of the business. But he was right. So all I challenge you, and this is the end of my talk, but anyway, all I challenge you is to go out and make yourself accountable. Make your kids accountable. Make your parents accountable. For most of you, it's past it for your parents. You're not going to be able to make them accountable. Make your employees accountable. Make your colleagues accountable. When I taught at university, I taught an honors class. We started out with 300 students. It was a year-long course. By the end of the finals, there was 13 left. 13 out of 300. Because I made the kids accountable. And that was 1994, 95. God knows what they're like now. Accountability, you know, it's like I was teaching the kid, one of the sponsors here. I showed up yesterday here. Sally and I said, another dipshit student thing. I was here yesterday. You understand that? Fucking meatheads? Is that just SOP for Canadian deal? I guess so. You know, if you ask yourself, if we were at war, would I be dead or alive after this action? Almost all of you would be dead. Because there's no consequences for being late. There's no consequences for not doing it. There's nothing. They've got some commercial here in Canada, just in Canada. $72,000 for take out a loan for school. $19,000 for room and board. Yada yada yada. And then, why is all that important? And so the girl in the commercial turns around and says, "So I can work for you." What is that a joke? Nobody gives a shit if the kid had to borrow 80 grand to go to school. Nobody gives a shit if you have student debt. If you think so, you're fucking brain dead. I sure shit don't care. That's not the way life is. I put on my website all the examples of how harsh the big super successful guys are and gals. And then why do you keep saying telling us the same thing over and over again, Mr. Peña? Because that's all that you need to know. It's a tough son of a bitch out there. And school's not wealth, risk, reward. For sure it's going to be not. It's not preparing you for anything. Other than taking exams. And I'm a good exam taker. I came back after flunking out of university 3 times, graduated with honors, finished 4 years of school in 2.5 years. But taking tests doesn't mean a goddamn thing. As you're going to find out pretty quick when your kids are in school right now. You're going to find out pretty damn quick. Now, this is old school. See, what happened? And I can tell from some of you guys, and I'm not making fun of you, this is the first time you've worn a tie or a coat and a tie in a while, maybe ever. And for those of you that are wearing your dad's coats, and you should have your dad tie your tie for you as well. But this isn't what life is. And now, in some circles, this is okay, I'm told. Not in any circles that I get here. And I'm told that's fine, that's cool for them. But if you expect to go out and get a job and have somebody pay you looking like this, you live in I don't know what you're on. Whatever you're on, give me some. If it's not addictive, I'll take it. But even one more. I can't get a job because Trump is a racist. Well, I'm glad I didn't have these 2 slides for Oxford, but I got it. They would have laughed anyway. But the kids, for those of you that, of course, this campus is not dissimilar. It's a lovely campus. But the Oxford kids are truly elitist. Although they were very nice to me, I had no complaints. Sounded out, they treated very nice. We were in the main dining room at Trinity, Price Collar, whatever, and the room where Harry Potter's from. And I kept looking up at the pictures, thinking they were going to fly off the walls like they do in the movie. It's quite an interesting thing. Where are we on time? The questions and answers. Yep. Okay, we're going to open it up to question and answer. Your question, my answers. Please use the mic. But it doesn't have to be wealth, risk, reward, not. At the end of the day, I left the United States and came to Europe to get away from my socioeconomic milieu. That's what I did. And it's just like a lot of the Native Americans leave the reservation. It doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to adhere. The one thing about being a high-performance person, there are no rules. You make the rules. You know, I'm a classic example of making those rules and succeeding in a world that I should have succeeded in. And I continue to succeed in. But more importantly than all my success, is we got teenage kids now with no education whatsoever that are making millions. God Almighty. I can't make it any plainer than that. Breaks my heart to see, people wasting their time when they could be doing something so much more beneficial. And if Josh were here, and Josh and I next year are going to go on the morning show, talk show circuit. Oprah and all that kind of shit, unless he changes his mind. And I don't know how you can rationalize when a teenage kid with no education can do something and you can't? I don't know how. But he's made a lot of sacrifices. Okay, young lady, are you first, young lady? Are you standing in a hole, lady, or are you just short? Oh no, she's height disadvantaged, right? Height disadvantaged, excuse me. No?
Me.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I love my family to death. My dad is very, very pussy. And my mom supports him because they got an arranged marriage. That's how the culture is, and most of them is.
Pray up!
You can understand. And me going to places like this, I've always been scared about my dad's approval. And growing up, I got over it. And he's still like the same man. He's not supporting me. I'm literally on the edge of leaving the house because he just can't take my ambition, my drive, and what I'm after. Do you have any suggestions?
No, leave. I mean, that's a very easy one. I mean, I have 50 or 60 or 70 young Muslim kids, and to think of it, the last two Canadian kids from Pakistan, and I said, you're not, and their father in Pakistan thought that they were living the 5 prayer day kind of thing, but they weren't. And I said, you got that guilt, and until you get rid of that guilt, you're not going to be able to move forward with your life. And he says, well, he's going to, so the older brother went back to Pakistan and told the father. The father did exactly what the God disowned him. The younger brother did it by Skype. And he disowned him too. And so the older brother, the joke between them is that I could have saved the trip. I could have done it by Skype as well. But that's not going to happen. They're not going to change. I'd like to tell you what it's going to change, but it's not. So, you got to belly up there. If you want to, you have to belly up the barn. Who's the first one? Okay, next.
Thank you.
Hi, man. I'm hair disadvantaged. So let's start with that.
Okay.
In front of it. Now, if you were to meet your 12-year-old version, Hellcat dipshit, what would your advice mentally to your 12-year-old self be? What are some things that you would do differently, better, that you would give advice to your younger self?
Well, I like the way it turned out, so I mean, it's not, I know what you're getting at.
Yeah.
Kids do, not what you tell them to do, they do what they see you do. Kids do what they see you do. And if you're a poor example, then that's what they're going to live. And most 12-year-olds, or forget 12-year-olds, most kids, their parents are not good role models. Your children hear what is going on from the second trimester in your mother's tummy. It's proven now. So when they were yelling and screaming, or the reason why I say that most of you are mistakes, when your father said, "You're pregnant again, you fat bitch," and your mother was only 6 months pregnant, you heard that, dipshits. That resonates with you. Some of you know down deep inside. And so, I mean, you have to lead by example. 2 of our 3 children, which are high performance, we have one child who's disadvantaged, they didn't like growing up. They didn't like me. And if our daughter and our youngest son were here, they'd say, "Dad doesn't care if we love him." And I don't. Mm-hmm. I want them to respect me 20 years after I'm dead. See? I mean, your parents and you, for you to be parent, like last night I had dinner with an NC and he says when the little kid's lip quivers, I don't give a fuck if the lip quivers. I'll pull the lip off. If you're going to get tied down to that, guys and gals, you got a hell of a road. Now just imagine raising me. Like my dad's only goal was to keep me alive till I reached the age of reason. And it was touch and go. It was touch and go. I mean, you had a tough love. My dad invented tough love in the 50s.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next.
Hi, Dan. You've often said that people get married for the wrong reasons, or that they choose.
You're not Canadian.
I'm Irish.
I know.
But I'm living
33.
here. I'm living here. 33. are they choosing their spouse for the wrong reasons? What are the reasons you want to be the best you can be? What are the reasons?
Well, I tell people, most people get married for the wrong reasons. Most people have kids for the wrong reasons. If you're young and single guys and gals, stay single. I'm just calling a spade a shovel, as my Yorkshire wife would say. And I know this is going to sound really shitty. Guys, hookers are easier. Hookers are easier. I'm just telling you like it is. I'm just telling you like it is. And, you can't fight a war on two fronts. Napoleon showed us that, and Hitler showed us that. And even though your significant others will say they're supportive until you miss your birthday. You're out on an appointment. They're supportive until you forget, you tell the mother-in-law, the old bitch can't come have dinner with you. So I'm telling you, the right reasons are few and far between. So I lucked out. I can't speak for my wife, but I lucked out. I married a workaholic, chartered accountant, deal-doing bitch. Now, there are not too many of those running around. But I found one. Didn't I, dear? Okay? But that's what I needed. I needed somebody, she works as hard as I do, if not harder. But if work's not in it. See, I don't consider what I do as work. See, I love what I do. And I do what I love. This is, I didn't realize trying to get into a school, I could see the Prime Minister easier than I got in this fucking school. Liverpool, University of Liverpool, not that it doesn't sound like scouts in Liverpool, I had to give the talk in a hayloft, a loft, but they wouldn't let me on campus. They wouldn't allow me on bloody campus. But the little Asian kid that sponsored it, he said, well, we're going to have this goddamn thing anyway, fuck the school. And so we did it in a loft. And so, but if you can't find somebody that's willing to share that burden, and it is a burden. It's lonely at the time, contrary to what you've been told. If you have time to go to sports bars and fuck around, forget about it. You're going to be a loser all your life. And I know a lot of you think you're successful already. I'll measure you against my teenager. Where the fuck do you stack up against him? Nowhere. That house he's going to build. Maybe he could be his gardener.
You do find somebody hardworking and focused?
Correct. They could jump physically and metaphorically. You jump on him right away.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, Dan. So, I'm 19 years old and
19.
I run two businesses and I run to school area and stuff. And after listening to a lot of your stuff, I realized that I'd like to see a lot of your videos online and stuff that I haven't made like 2 shekels or anything. So what I wanted to do was I looked online all your stuff and I
Okay, so let's get to the question.
QLA stuff. So what you teach in the QLA system is basically a hostile takeover of other businesses.
Not hostile. Okay, the key to the our formula, not my formula. Andrew Carnegie did it 145 years ago. And the reason why they make M&A so difficult now so they can charge you more fees. M&A is simple. Motivated seller, free cash flow, covers debt service. Full stop, end of story. I'm going to say it again. Motivated seller, free cash flow, covers debt service. Full stop. That's it. There isn't anymore. And to make it a little more confusing, I hope inflation comes in the next 5 or 10 years. Because then we're going to pay the debt back with cheaper dollars. That's a little over the head of a University of Toronto kid, but I'm sure the McGill kid would get that. Go ahead.
So winter is purely separate.
No, it's not the hostile takeover. I've been involved in hostile takeover on both sides. But that's a whole other level that you don't need to be. That's not what John, the young teenager's doing. He's finding a motivated seller. And they tease me saying a motivated seller is he just had a stroke and she's spitting up, the wife is spitting up blood from emphysema. Now there's a motivated seller. And you jump on that one right away.
Awesome.
Blood coming down.
Peña, it's a pleasure to meet you, by the way.
Pardon?
It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
And my question is, first of all, what would you say are the 2 or 3 top traits of high performers, and how one can go about cultivating them? And secondly, I want to know what's your take on...
Let me answer the 3 first. The traits of high performance are doing what they say, walking the talk. And that's for 99% of all the personal development guys. Okay. For all the personal development guys, fall down if they don't walk the talk. The second is being commitment, and I have a deal on my website about commitment. In other words, it's easy to honor your commitment when it's easy. But when the circumstances change, 3 years later, you know, your 9-year-old daughter just got knocked up by your brother, and then it's not so easy to honor commitment. So it's in focus. What's the next question?
The next question was, what's your take on the entire concept of loyalty?
It's absolute. Without loyalty and integrity, you've got nothing. And you only have one time to make a first impression. If they lie, cheat, one time, next, kick them to the curb. One time. Kick them to the curb.
Hi, man. So I've been following you online for quite a while.
Okay.
I watch your videos. I really only have one question.
Well,
I've heard all this a lot. What would it take for you to accept me to come to the QLA in November on the 15th? Other than money that I don't have.
There is none. I don't need you to work for me for free. I got more offers than that. That's not important. Thousands of people want to work for me for free. Some people want to pay me for them to work for me. I'm not interested in that. You make the commitment. You can do it without me. 99.9% of the people did it without me. Now, the billionaires did it with me. I would be disingenuous. The billionaire guys and gals, I laid my hand just like God. I mean, just like God. There's going to be Allah, Buddha, Peña, and Christ. Or maybe Peña, Allah, Buddha, and yeah. Praise the Lord, pass the ammunition. Okay.
Hello, Dan. I hope your trip to Toronto was good. Pleasant.
So far until you got up here, it was all right.
I sound very good.
Okay, go ahead.
Everybody here is very aware of your successes with $50 billion man. What I'm curious about is, what were some of your greatest challenges that you had to overcome to get here?
Well, get here. I came a day early, and the little dipshit wasn't here. I mean, in this room.
Well, to be the $50 billion.
No. The only thing I did is I grossly underestimated how hard it is to pull your kids across the goal line. When I decided to do this in 1993, I turned $800 into about $500 million at the time, and I thought that I'd fill up rooms like this 6 times a day. But everybody said, well, that's Dan. He's a world-class public speaker, he's this, that, and I can't do that. So they all discounted that.
Katrina, I'm from Argentina. I got here 2 years ago. It's an honor to be here in front of you.
Thank you.
It's like a dream came true.
Okay.
My question is, I create a product, and every time I almost dare finish my product, I'm kind of scared to finish it, to launch it.
Well, that's when you don't pull the trigger, because it's either going to tell you if it's successful or it's not successful, and if it's not successful, then that means you can either piss a bunch of time away, or you haven't. One of the hardest things for guys that are over 35 years old to buy on this program, the Dan Peña gig, is you have to admit that you've wasted 20 years of your life. And you might as well have rolled down the inside of your mother's leg. That's the full fucking truth. In much shorter time frame, your deal is either going to work or it's not going to work. And if it doesn't work, that means the hours, the days, the weeks, the months that you spent on it may be down the toilet. It's like a relationship. Most of you stay in relationships too long. Okay? And you think to yourself, I've been here 6 months with the old bitch, or you think with the old ass. Well, fuck. The one you got is better than the one you might get. And so you just stay. You stay married, you stay in a bad relationship. You're the product of bad relationships, kids. Your fucking parents didn't want your sorry asses. Look at you. What in God's name could they be proud of looking at you? Nothing. And you know that and they know that and you never talk to them about it. But it's a goddamn truth. So getting back to you, you just gotta pull the trigger and it either works or it doesn't work.
My second question is, what motivates you now that you are a billionaire?
No, I'm not a billionaire. I've created billions. I'm not a billionaire. But what motivates me is dragging you guys across the goal line. That's my passion. And, I mean, it's a great example. I don't get paid for it. So, either I'm a psycho, which is possible, which I've been accused of worse. Either I'm a psycho, or I'm, and I'm not trying to connote myself, and I'm not looking to be crucified. Okay? But there's been a few cycles like me over time, that I happen to be ritual. What can they do to me, You can't take my money away. Maybe they can, they can. But I know where I live, they can't. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, man. Well, come to the seminar. I mentor everybody from the seminar 1 year for free. Why do I do it for free? So then I can throw your sorry ass out if you're a cunt. And I might die, not likely, or I might decide to stop doing this. So I want the advantage of not being obligated to mentor you for pay. So that's why I mentor you for free. And we have some products of my mentorship in the audience. Don't raise your hands. I don't want them to mock it. That's the only way. By the way, don't send me any deals. I'm not interested in any fucking thing you got to do in any portion of your life. Believe me. Nothing. Okay? No deals. Don't come by and see me. I don't want you to buy me a lunch, a dinner, a coffee. Fuck off. Do as well. And when you see me in an airport, don't come up and talk to me. Please. So, all of you go to the seminar or just do the stuff on my website. It'll be fine.
Okay, another question. How do you stay humble?
I'm not so humble. But I don't think humility is a requisite for being a high-performance person. The last person that was humble, they put nails in their hands. So I don't consider that. And if you study the Elon Musk's of this world, or Amazon's guy, there's nothing humble about those guys. Okay, next.
You say that the biggest regret in life is not setting your goals big enough.
That's one of my three regrets, not setting my goals high enough.
Yeah, so I don't fully understand what you mean by that, because, are you saying you got basically the big goals, or something?
No, I set a goal of $2 billion when I was in that era, and I reached $500 billion. And if I had set my goals at $20 billion, I may have created $3 or $4 billion. That's what I mean.
But how do you know that's the...
You don't know. It's monopoly. You got no fucking money anyway. Jesus Christ, look at you. You got cheap suits. You got Jesus Christ, you look like fucking trash. It's all monopoly money. It doesn't matter what numbers you pick. It doesn't matter. So you think it matters. Josh Kim, that house, that $45 million fucking house. Didn't you get it? Are you as stupid as you look?
I'm not stupid.
Yeah. Well, you're certainly acting stupid.
So, does that mean, don't you have to set some goals?
No, that's bullshit. Whoever told you to set time limits on your goals, all time limits do is keep you from achieving them earlier. I went public on my 39th birthday because in the back of my Mexican wetback brain, I said, it'd be nice to be worth a couple $100 million before I'm 40. But what if I said as soon as humanly possible? But I didn't say as soon as humanly possible. And it's not by accident that I went to public on the London Stock Exchange on my 39th birthday.
So the next one is like, how do you, is there a sweet spot between deciding how much you should like, not writing the right information versus getting the right amount to keep you accountable a little bit?
There was no sweet spot in anything.
So does that mean you just keep pushing it?
As hard as you can. Until you die. Okay, next.
Thank you for being so blunt.
Well, I'm not being anything special, believe me. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, no, where I'm from. Anyways, I have a simple question for you. You talk a lot about two ways to create money, equity and transaction. So my question is about that. So for myself, in this day and age, what would you recommend? I'm 22, so give you some context.
I said this to Governor Rick Scott, who used to be my guy. He founded the largest healthcare company in the history of the world, Columbia Healthcare. Healthcare and telco, stroke internet are the two areas. Don't fuck around with anything else unless you're passionate. Healthcare and telco. That's it.
And to kind of follow up with that, in telecom and all this, you see a lot of these companies building just to sell from day one.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's what we're doing.
Yes.
We're exiting. We're not keeping anything.
Okay, so I'm young. I know you stayed in your first company for 8 years or so. So would you recommend either just building to sell real quick or?
No, the market tells you when to sell.
Okay. So
you don't tell them. The market will. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Yeah.
Hi. So my question was, how do you create, you were talking about the circle of friends that you have and that influences your success. How do you create that circle?
You don't create. Shit can everybody you know, for starters. Family, friends, just shit can. You know how when you flush the toilet, what it looks like? That's what you do. I can say that to everybody in this fucking room. And the hardest day for your parents should be the easiest because they fuck you up. But it'll be the hardest because you're a weenie.
And then is that all the part of the circle that comes?
No. Then you go out and find the people, just like in my website. You go out and find the right people.